Welcome to the Sustainable Business Series. This Q&A makes up a key part of the Sustainable Business Series campaign in 2023, and today I'm joined by Ben Stone, Group Head of Environmental Sustainability at Kier. Ben, thank you for joining me.
Yeah, thanks very much. I'm really pleased to be here. I'm really pleased to talk about what we're doing on sustainability at Kier.
Fantastic. So diving straight into it, what are the key principles that drive your approach to sustainability at Kier?
Okay, so sustainability is in our purpose. So it's driven right from the top, right from our executive and our board. So our purpose is to sustainably deliver infrastructure that's vital to the UK. So it's right there, and we embed it into everything we do. We've just been through a process of updating our sustainability strategy, building for a sustainable world. So that ran for 3 years, and we had really great success over the last 3 years. So we cut our carbon footprint, our operational footprint, by 67% since 2019, which is great. And we delivered £5 billion of social value across the UK in that period. So really great outcomes. But the world has changed in the last few years massively. So we've had a pandemic. We've seen the climate emergency increase in scale and impact across the country. We've got a nature emergency hot on its heels. We've got cost of living crisis. So we knew it was time to do a proper update and to try and get our people really engaged and on board to help deliver it for us. So we've kind of streamlined our strategy. We went out and talked to around 1,500 of our employees and 166 of our clients and suppliers. And we've tried to make it simple so everybody can get on board. So we've got 3 key focus areas in our new sustainability strategy that we ask people to help us with. So we're looking at our people and building a workforce and supply chain for the future. Our places, and that means making a positive difference in our local communities, and our planet. So we're looking at how we're improving the environment now and for future generations. And across those 3, while there's 3 pillars in our strategy, we really know that they're integrated. So we don't just want to look at climate change and cutting carbon emissions. We want to look at how we have a just transition to climate change as well. And we help our communities adapt to the changing climate. Another example would be, or a real example would be, where we've been working with Supply Chain Sustainability School. We sponsored one of their projects to look at responsible sourcing of solar panels. So we want to put solar panels on all our projects. We want to put them across the UK because they're a great low carbon product. But a lot of the polysilicate wafers that go into solar panels to make them work come from the Uyghur region of China. So huge forced labour risks in the supply chain. So we've been working with the Supply Chain School and our peers to say, okay, let's come together and let's agree a really strong due diligence process. So when we're buying solar panels, we really think about, not just cutting carbon, but also what are the social impacts of buying those materials and those products. So it gets really complicated. We've had some really great win-win situations where we've saved money and we've cut emissions or delivered social value. But sometimes we know there's going to be an impact from going to a lower carbon product. We're not always going to have win-wins, and we're going to have to pick the options that are almost the least bad or deliver the most value out of all of them. So we're on a journey. We've got those 3 pillars. The other things that came from our internal and external stakeholders were that we need to collaborate more. Our clients and our supply chain and our peers, we all know that we can't do it by ourselves. We can't address the climate crisis. We can't address the nature crisis by ourselves. So we want to work with people. About 90% of our carbon emissions come from our supply chain. So from the materials we buy and our subcontractors' diesel use on site. That's where a lot of our carbon emissions are from. And it's really hard to address that unless we're working really collaboratively with them. So we're building that process to expand out and say, it's not just about what we're doing as Kier, it's about what everybody's doing together to address those big global challenges that are out there. So we've got a long way to go. We're working with our supply chain, with our partners. We're working hard to try and improve the sort of literacy and the skills of the people that are in our business. But we're really excited to sort of take the next step and to embed it even more throughout our business.
Absolutely. And I think that kind of theme of collaboration is really important. I mean, obviously, as a Chamber of Commerce, collaboration is very much at the heart of what we do. I think for an organisation like Kier to be working collaboratively to achieve this, you have immense, especially compared to some of the SMEs that we worked with, kind of immense resources and influence. And it's great to hear about the good you're doing with that and the force for good that Kier is in this agenda.
And we really want to work with those SMEs. So we have a large proportion of our supply chain are SMEs, whether it's our sort of tier 1 or tier 2 in our supply chain, there's a lot of them there. So the supply chain school really help and provide lots of resources, but we do want to help them to improve as well, because we know they don't have the in-house carbon experts or sustainability experts to deliver improvement. So if they need our help, the door's always open, and we do want to work with them to innovate and to sort of help them reduce their environmental impacts as well.
Amazing. You touched on kind of building the future and building for future generations. How do you ensure that your projects are kind of adapted long term to those future climate needs?
Yeah. So we're working quite hard on this. We have a growing in-house design team that do life cycle assessments of our projects. So they look at the embodied carbon in the materials that we're using. They look at the energy use that a building can use over its whole life. And they also look at how it's adapted to a changing climate. So, is it going to get overheated in the summer? Is it designed to cope with extreme weather events like flooding or extreme rainfall events? So we're building that team and growing it. It's predominantly focused on our construction business at the moment, but it's growing out into infrastructure as well. So we're really looking at it from 2 points of view. The first is the carbon emissions from building a project. So we're sort of mitigating climate change, not contributing as much to a changing climate. And the other part is adapting to a changing climate. So how do we make sure that our buildings and the infrastructure we manage are adapted? So we've had some really good success in Birmingham. We're working with Aston University on a product called Biochar. So really innovative, unlikely to be using it straight away, but we are looking at all of the arisings from the highways networks that we manage, how we can collect those together and then heat them to a really high temperature with no oxygen. And that creates biochar. It locks up all the carbon into that material, but then it's also a soil improver. So we can use it on our projects or on farmland, and the carbon just stays locked away in it, but helps with crop growth as well and helps with soil structure. So we're looking at those sort of blue sky innovative opportunities as well, where we can sort of capture that carbon and lock it in from the activities we're doing. It's not going to happen overnight, but really interesting. We're also in Birmingham, we manage all of the highways, so we've started using foam mix as business as usual. So this is an asphalt, so tarmac that's used in the roads, but it's cold laid. So rather than having to put any heat in there and use a load of energy, we can then just use it as a cold product instead in the sub base of the road structure. So clearly uses much less energy and is a 100% recycled product, so also good in terms of resources. So we're really pushing on with some of those bits and pieces. The picture that you can see behind me is one of our verges, so wildflower verges as well. So cutting the amount of energy we need to use from reducing the amount of energy we need to use from cutting the verges, and also providing a nature benefit. So there's some really great projects going on. And I suppose the other bit around sort of adapting for climate change, so the other side of the climate change agenda, we've identified that climate change is a big risk for us. So we know that our supply chains are at risk from climate change, but and the infrastructure we manage is at risk from climate change, but we can deliver great value there as well. So where we are working really closely with partners like the Environment Agency, we're creating floodplains that allow seawater to come in, so we don't flood infrastructure. We are using nature-based solutions to climate change, so where we can plant trees and hedges that are going to absorb air emissions and carbon out of the air, so that we're sort of adapting those areas. There's a huge amount of opportunity for Kier to manage the infrastructure more effectively so that it's resilient to a changing climate. So lots of work to do again, very fast changing arena to operate in, but as a major construction firm, we do need to work to manage the infrastructure for a changing climate.
Definitely, and I love that, some fantastic kind of examples of that innovation and collaboration that's happening even locally here in Birmingham in the West Midlands.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
Actually already either in action or kind of headed in that direction. That's amazing.
Yeah. There's one more that I'd forgotten about actually. So we've just started construction on a project called 19 Cornwall Street in Birmingham, and that's an office project which is EPCA, BREEAM Excellent. So when it's finished, it'll be really low carbon. But the innovative bit we've done there, I think, which is exciting, is we've retained the structure of the building. So we're putting a new facade on, which is really energy efficient, but we retained all of the foundations and all the concrete supports. So all of that embodied carbon that you would normally knock down and build afresh is all staying in situ. So we're not getting rid of all of that. We're keeping it all in place. And then we're just creating a new building around that structure, which is fit for purpose and has 400 square meters of solar panels on the roof. So it's going to be, you know, a really low carbon office building for the future.
I guess, I mean, I know nothing about construction, but it sounds kind of like a combination or a compromise between retrofitting and a new building.
Yeah,
kind of
absolutely.
keeping the core, but making it new.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I mean, I'm sure we've all been in lots of old buildings that are not really fit for purpose and have lots of small rooms and are a bit like a maze. Well, sometimes, you know, people just say, well, it's easy just to knock it down. But if we can retain the structure and retain all of that material, embodied carbon, and, you know, still good, fit for purpose, then we'll retain it and build around it. It's absolutely more sustainable. Yeah.
You kind of touched on this already, and I love the picture behind you of the verge. What steps are Kier taking to protect the natural environment that you're building around?
This is kind of one of the pillars for us and in our new strategy. So we are trying to build this into all of our projects. I mean, the State of Nature report came out just a few days ago, and that said, you know, the nature in the UK is really struggling. I think where we're trying to educate is to say, it's not just nature for nature's benefit. Nature provides all of our clean water. Nature provides all of our clean air. It deals with all of our waste. You know, it provides timber, it provides food. So all of these things, our society is completely dependent on nature. And if it falls off a cliff, it's going to be really difficult for us. You know, alongside climate change, the World Economic Forum has said the nature emergency in the next 10 years is going to be right at the top of the biggest risks for the world. So we absolutely understand we've got to do more on nature. We're looking at undertaking an assessment at the moment to understand where are our biggest impacts on nature and where are our biggest dependencies on nature as a business. So, you know, that's those sort of risks and opportunities for us to do more. But we're doing some really great stuff. So we used to operate a mine in Scotland up until about 2018. We've remediated that from what was pretty poor farmland before it became a mine into an area where we're building a wind farm. We've put a solar farm on the site. We're creating some native species woodland to add to biodiversity. We've created a nature reserve, which is great for bird watching for the local community. We're restoring some peatland up there as well to try and capture more carbon into the peat on the upland areas of the site. And we're going to try and work with local community organisations up there to manage that. So we know mining wasn't a great thing to do in the past. You know, we have had an impact doing that, but we are trying to put it back to generate something which is more sustainable now on the assets that we own. So that's a really great innovative project up there in Scotland that we're working on. We've also been working on projects like we've been doing flood defences off the coast of the UK, and we've been building and creating with the Environment Agency again low carbon blocks which create a sea defence, but they've got a design drawn into them that allows barnacles and other sea life to use them as sort of an artificial reef. So you get sort of this double benefit. You're protecting the coastline from extreme climate weather, but you're also creating this habitat for wildlife at the same time. So we can have win-wins there, and we're using low carbon concrete to build those as well. So low embodied carbon, protected from climate change, delivering a nature benefit, helping society as well, because you don't have those climate impacts. So, you know, you can get all of these nature-based solutions to help with climate change and support nature. And then I think the only other bit I'd kind of talk about possibly on this is we've just finished our first Kier-wide competition called Kier in Bloom. So all of our depots and our sites have had the opportunity to enhance their areas for nature. So create spaces that support the workforce. They can go and have their lunch in them and sit in them, but that also support nature. So we've had green walls being built. We've had planters being reused that have come off the highway network and would have done in a skip. You know, we've had areas created for the workforce to sit in. We've got tree planting that's been going on down banks and restoration of wetland areas. So we've had some really great work, which has been our own people using using materials that have either been donated or that would have been waste to create these areas that support nature and support the depots. And actually, I've got one more as well I was just thinking about. So for the last 3 years, our highways contract in Birmingham has been supporting Birmingham Tree People. So they've been working with them and providing equipment and volunteering and financial support, and really to try and recreate an urban forest in Birmingham. So creating green spaces that support nature, but also helping to absorb air emissions, air quality emissions, and creating spaces that people want to be in. So a really great opportunity for us to sort of broaden out from those verges along the networks that we manage, and helping to sort of bring it out into the city as well and work with local communities.
Definitely, and some brilliant examples there, I think, of initiatives that businesses across the region can replicate themselves or let's kind of learn from themselves. Absolutely. Thank you ever so much for some hugely insightful answers. That was really, really interesting and a great insight into the work that you're doing at Kier on this agenda. Huge thank you also to our sponsors, of course, University College Birmingham and Lloyds Bank. Thanks to their support, all of the Sustainable Business Series events, webinars and content are free for the business community to access. And to anyone who's watching or listening, please don't forget to register for Sustainable Business Series events and webinars on the Chamber website. And of course, to tune into other Q&As throughout the month. But thank you ever so much, Ben.
Thanks very much. Nice to be here.